Hi guys, today I'm going to be bringing you a story of an acquaintance of mine from the neighborhood I grew up in. He's um he's actually Guatemalan, um, but he grew up in a traditional Mexican neighborhood where the majority of the actual families are either Filipino or Mexican. And he was a year younger than me. To say he was a good friend of mine, I can't say that. Um, he was good friends with a couple of my good friends throughout high school. But he was a gang member. But the city where I grew up in, for the most part, throughout any time, there's anywhere from 5 to 6 active gangs in this actual city. So um, for the most part, within the same city, they'll get along. They'll back each other up if they're out in public or whatever. But the gang that he actually was affiliated to, um, they nobody really cared for them, and they did a lot of actual unethical things, you know what I mean, for within the actual city. And nobody really got along with them. And I had a few good friends that were actually part of this actual gang that I grew up with, but they just chose to go with that route. And I mean, they're still my friends. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything, even though I have family in the other gangs. It was just different. But at the same time, I was not about to walk into a house party with these actual friends that are actually part of this other gang, because if something were to go down, especially if with with the gangs from my relatives, then I gotta go. Then I gotta, and then it gets all political. So it was just easier not to actually go to party with them. If they would come over, to the house or whatever, it'd be different. But to hang out, nah, it wasn't like you couldn't. You know what I mean? Because you just couldn't do that. So with the actual time, I did my thing, he did his thing, and he kept in touch with good friends of mine, and he ended up uh dating and marrying a niece of a good friend of mine. And so we'd always see each other at get-togethers, at parties associated with my friend and his family and her family. So within time, he's working part-time at a cable company installing, and he also has a couple of actual construction trucks, big cement pumps, cement actual, you know, trucks. He has a couple of them. So he doesn't actually work on that actual line of work, but he has other people working the actual equipment that he actually owns. That's kind of nice. You don't break your back, trying to do these trying to make a living. He has other people doing it. And actually, when he got arrested, um, he asked me if he can actually bring his trucks to leave it at my property while he did his time. And it wasn't that long of a time, so I said, "Yeah, go ahead. I mean, you know, plenty of room, and they're safe there. So he's got that going on, and his wife's she's some kind of, the only thing I could actually really associate with probably be like a loan officer. She did well for her family. She did very, very well for her family, and through the time period that this happened, um, the actual market for real estate was really booming for them. So she made quite a bit of money. And so by this time, they have a couple of houses. She has a nice car, the construction trucks. Um, he has an actual super sport Chevy truck, really nice, black, and he also has an Impala that he has in TJ at a body shop that they're actually working on it. Little by little, he's getting some work done, and So he frequents the actual crossing the border frequently, you know what I mean, and dropping off money or dropping off parts or whatever, you know. And he's actually getting nickel plated, some stuff nickel plated down there, and that's why he actually took it down there, you know, because they do good work down there actually. So fast forward, long story short, there was a particular Fourth of July weekend that we came in contact with him. We had actually gone out on my boat to San Diego Bay to watch the fireworks, and by the time we got back to where I kept the actual my boat in the summertime was close to the actual to a pier, you know, to a dock, you know, where you actually can actually dock your trailer and in your boat, you know, and go into the actual in the actual San Diego Harbor, you know, by 32nd Street. So um, by this time it was midnight. We already had come back, and I was cleaning the boat out, you know, cleaning out from the day actual out on the sand. So he comes by about midnight, and he's there to see a good friend of mine, the actual owner of the house. He goes up there to the gazebo. They up there for about half hour, you know, and he leaves about half hour. He says bye to everything, but he seems a little bit off. But you know, to each his own, right? The more you ask, the more people ask for you to do. So leave it at that. So my friend, after he leaves, he comes down and he tells us that somebody had broke into his house and took $10,000. And I said, oh, you know, but I asked my friend straight up. I said, oh, okay, you're telling me that somebody, or does he know who did it? You know, not everybody's gonna know where you have that money. And he goes, oh, he thinks he knows who did it, whatever, you know. And so time goes by, you know, we don't really think anything of it. And so, you know, we're thinking that he's kind of laying low. He's got a couple of gigs going on, and prior to this, prior to maybe about 3 years prior to this, they actually got hit hard by the FBI because they actually held up an arms dealer in Arizona and took a couple of actual crates. I think they were Tech Nines. They took a couple of crates and they passed them out throughout, you know, within the actual gang. So they actually got everybody got raided by the actual FBI and other agencies looking for these actual Tech Nines. Well, they found a few of them, and this particular friend, dating Manny, he was aware of everything, but he wasn't actually part of that actual heist. So they didn't have anything on him, so they just let him be, whatever. But I didn't I didn't know what he was up to, and I'm glad nobody ever told me that he was actually slanging crystal. But a few months later, after he got that money stolen, he gets actually he gets arrested by the DEA. Now this is a federal case now because the DEA actually purchased 7 pounds from Manny. So now he's been looking at a long time. Like, he's gonna be looking quite, a long time. This is before it was actually an epidemic, with the start of it, and they were giving out the minimum is 10, the max it would be 20 on a charge like that. There's no other way around it. There's no halftime. There's no early parole. No, 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 no. They were actually they were actually bringing you actually they were gonna bring you down. They were actually gonna take you down, right? So, you know, we kind of get some information from my friend that's the actual aunt to his wife, which is her niece, right? So we're getting the inside actual the facts, you know. And so at that time, they ended up having to get a lawyer, and they got a very, very good lawyer. He lawyered up. He lawyered up, by the way, and he actually did the right thing. And I'm gonna tell you, he did the right thing because he actually was set up in a position in an actual spot, right? He was actually set up in a good spot where that guy who stole the actual $10,000 from his home, they had actually paperwork of him actually being the one that actually put the actual pyramid into place. So by the time they got to Manny, they did not need anything because they had everybody, even from the top all the way to the bottom. They had everybody's identified. So by the time Manny got busted, he was part of that pyramid, and they did not need any kind of information. They didn't put the pressure on him. They didn't threaten him with more time and everything. So they went in there just a regular case. Well, he got a good lawyer, an expensive lawyer, and paid some heavy fines. And that lawyer got the actual charge dropped down to a state charge. So now he's been locked up for the fact that it was the feds. And with him being from Guatemala, they probably saw with the money he had, they probably saw a flight risk, whatever. Um, but they never actually gave him any prison time. This actual lawyer this actual lawyer had friends in high places. He played golf with judges. He mingled with high power judges, DAs, lawyers, the whole realm. And he got it knocked down to a state charge, and he did 14 months in a camp near San Diego. And he did not give up any information. He did not actually rat anybody out because there was nothing to rat on because they already had all the whole pyramid, on paper. And he actually got the time served, and he had the trucks. Maybe I'm at my house maybe about 8 months. It was not a year, I tell you that. So he had time served, and he did his 14 months, and he did his probation when he got out, and after he got out, he picked up the trucks and he started working the trucks, and he's actually doing pretty good. You know what I mean? And I actually saw him at a funeral of a good friend of mine that was part of his actual gang. I saw him at an actual funeral this past in 2020. It was actually in August 2020, or was it November? I'm not quite sure, but I lost a real good friend of mine up in Covina, somewhere up there. They shot him too. I don't know what he was up to. They shot him in the torso, one shot. Some guy from Whittier did it, and but he was doing good. He was doing good. A little bit overweight, but you know, doing real good. And that's his story. I mean, he lawyered up. He got the right people. It cost him a lot, but I mean, he got to keep everything except for that truck. Okay, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe.